Hi everyone, I'm Valerie from IELTS Grader, and today I'm going to teach you the 3 quick and easy steps you need in order to write a great introduction for the IELTS Task 2 essay. Introductions can be a pain. You kind of already know what you want to say, you want to hop right into writing your essay because you don't have a lot of time. However, your introduction is going to be really crucial for your examiner to be able to follow your essay from start to finish. Your introduction is going to lay out a roadmap that helps your examiner understand what your essay is going to be about step by step. All right, so what are these 3 steps? To write a great high-scoring IELTS essay, you want to 1. Form an opinion, 2. Brainstorm keywords, and 3. Frame your essay. So step 1 is to form an opinion. This is going to end up being your thesis, which will be the most important part of your essay because it will tell whoever's reading your essay what you plan on arguing. So the majority of IELTS prompts are going to ask you to give some sort of opinion, whether or not it's agree or disagree, advantages or disadvantages, or simply asking for your opinion. Once you decide on your opinion, it's going to frame how the rest of your response goes. Because now that you've decided what you want to write about, all you need to do is back it up with examples. In order to get a better idea of how to write an introduction that will score a band 8 on the exam, we're going to walk through an example together. Because this prompt is asking whether or not I agree or disagree with the statement they're asking, I have to form an opinion on one of the 2 sides. Now, this opinion that I'm going to choose is going to be the one that I feel like I can back up the most easily. So the one that I either relate with the most or that I know more information about. In my case, I'm going to pick agree, that I think the government should pay for education. So, step 2 is to start brainstorming keywords related to not only the prompt, but also to the opinion that we've chosen to take a stance for. Now, we've decided that we're going to argue that the government should fund education. So now it's time to think about what we know about either the government paying for education or the expense of education. You can really write down as many things as you want. The more ideas that you write down now, the more options you have to choose from when it comes to finally deciding what you want to talk about in your essay. So, using the same prompt that we looked at in step 1, we're going to try to decide what we know or remember with regards to the government and to education. So, if I go through a list of things that pop into my head when I read this prompt, I would say, obviously, for one, education can be really expensive. So that's one thing I'm going to write down. The second thing is going to be that not all schools have the same amount of resources. So if there's a difference in resources, there's a difference in education. Another thing that I can think of would maybe be the difference between public schools and private schools and how that affects the kids and their opportunity to receive a well-rounded education. So now that I have a couple of ideas written down for things that I could talk about in my essay, we are going to move on to step 3. As we start to write our introduction, we're going to want to think of the information we're providing as a funnel. So our introduction is going to start really broad and then get increasingly more specific as we approach our thesis statement. So the first part of our introduction is going to be the most broad, which is going to be the hook. The hook is a general statement about the topic you're going to write about. intended to grab your reader and pull them into the rest of your essay. So, a hook is not essential. So if you don't have time, don't stress about it. Don't spend too much time trying to think of something on the fly. You don't need it. However, it is a very quick, compelling way to draw your examiner in to what you're going to talk about and set up the rest of your essay. If I were to brainstorm 2 possible hooks for the prompt we've been looking at about government-funded education, one might be something like, education is a right, not a privilege. In this way, we're kind of hinting at the fact that there's something unequal about education, which we are going to talk about later. It relates to our keywords that we brainstormed, something along the lines of private versus public schools providing different educations, or schools not having the same amount of resources. It hints at that without getting too specific right away. A second hook that we could potentially consider would be, education is essential for the growth of a society. In this way, similar to the one before, we're kind of hinting at the fact that education should be equal among all people. I'm going to stick with resources being unequal between different schools, and then the fact that tuition is really expensive. So now that I have my hook, which is going to be, education is a right, not a privilege, I'm going to write 2 quick sentences that bring together those facts, just brushing on them. For example, I could say something along the lines of, however, all people don't have access to the same quality of education because different schools have different amounts of resources to work with. Additionally, tuition is very expensive and stops some people from going to university. These are 2 broad statements that I'm going to touch on later and give more facts to support my arguments. Now, the last part of our funnel is going to be the most important, which is the thesis statement. Now, we're going to combine the opinion that we came up with earlier with these general facts and statements that we just listed. You want your thesis statement to be clear and concise. You want to say exactly what you plan on talking about later in your essay. So, based on the ideas, facts, opinions that we've come up with, here is our thesis statement. I think the government should pay for education so that everyone has equal access to a quality education and the opportunity to pursue higher education without going into severe debt. So now I've talked very specifically about the 2 points I gave general facts about in the middle of my introduction. And now I've also taken a stance on the opinion the prompt asked me to decide on, which was to agree or disagree with the statement that government should pay for education for all people. All right, now we've gotten all 3 parts of our introduction. The widest part of the funnel, the hook, the middle part of the funnel, which were the general facts, and the smallest part of the funnel, which is the thesis statement. Take a minute to read our full introduction to get an idea of how all of this ties together. Congratulations! That's our introduction. So, let's quickly summarize the points that we talked about during this video. In step 1, we formed our opinion on how we wanted to respond to the prompt. Agree or disagree? In step 2, we brainstormed some keywords for things that we could potentially talk about during our essay. In step 3, we framed our essay, which included starting off with our hook, which was a broad statement about the topic, writing our general facts, where we used our keywords to touch on what we were going to talk about in our essay, but not very specifically, and then writing our thesis statement, where we combined our opinion from step 1 and our keywords from step 2. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video about 3 quick and easy steps to write a great introduction. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them below and we'll get back to you with an answer. And if you want any more help writing an IELTS Task 2 essay, visit us at IELTSgrader.ai for tips, resources, and practice. See you next time!